Dante's Inferno, Canto 27, Guido de Montefeltro, His Deception by Pope Boniface VIII. Already was the flame erect and quiet to speak no more, and now departed from us with the permission of the gentle poet, when yet another, which behind it came, caused us to turn our eyes upon its top by a confused sound that issued from it, as the Sicilian bull that bellowed first with the lament of him, and that was right, who with his file had modulated it, bellowed so with the voice of the afflicted that notwithstanding it was made of brass, still it appeared with agony transfixed. Thus, by not having any way or issue at first from out the fire, to its own language converted were the melancholy words. But afterwards, when they had gathered way up through the point, giving it that vibration the tongue had given them in their passage out, we heard it said, "O thou at whom I aim my voice, and who but now wast speaking, Lombard, saying, Now go thy way, no more I urge thee. Because I come perchance a little late to stay and speak with me, let it not irk thee. Thou seest it irks not me, and I am burning. Thou but lately into this blind world hast fallen down from that sweet Latian land, wherefrom I bring the whole of my transgression. Say, that the Romagnols have peace or war? For I was from the mountains there between Urbino and the yoke that whence Tiber burst. I still was downward bent and listening, when my conductor touched me on the side, saying, Speak thou, this one a Latian is. And I, who had beforehand my reply in readiness, forthwith began to speak. O soul, that down below there art concealed, Romagna thine is not, never has been, without war at the bosom of its tyrants. But open war I none have left there now. Ravenna stands as it long years has stood. The eagle of Polenta there is brooding, so that she covers Servia with her vans. The city which once made the long resistance, and of the French a sanguinary heap, beneath the green paws finds itself again. Verruccio's ancient mastiff and the new who made such bad disposal of Montagna, where they are wont to make wimbles of their teeth. The cities of Lamone and Salerno governs the lionshell of the white hare who changes sides twixt summer-time and winter, and that of which the Savio bathes the flank, even as it lies between the plain and mountain, lives between tyranny and a free state. Now I entreat thee, tell us who thou art. Be not more stubborn than the rest have been. So may thy name hold front there in the world. After the fire a little more had roared, in its own fashion, the sharp point it moved this way and that, and then gave forth such breath. If I believed that my reply were made to one who to the world would e'er return, this flame without more flickering would stand still. But inasmuch as never from this depth did any one return, if I hear true, without the fear of infamy, I answer, I was a man of arms, then collier, believing thus begirt to make amends, and truly my belief had been fulfilled but for the high priest, whom may ill betide, who put me back into my former sins, and how and wherefore I will have thee bear. While I was still the form of bone and pulp my mother gave to me, the deeds I did were not those of a lion, but of a fox. Machination and the covert ways, I knew them all, and practised so their craft that to the ends of earth the sound went forth. When now unto that portion of mine age I saw myself arrived, when each one ought to lower the sails and coil away the ropes, that which before had pleased me then displeased me, and penitent and confessing I surrendered. Ah, woe is me, and it would have bestead me, the leader of the modern Pharisees, having a war near unto Lateran, and not with Saracens, nor with the Jews, for each one of his enemies was Christian, and none of them had been to conquer Acre, nor merchandising in the Sultan's land, nor the high office, nor the sacred orders in him regarded, nor in me that cord which used to make those girt with it more meagre. But even as Constantine sought out Sylvester to cure his leprosy within Sorak, So this one sought me out as an adept to cure him of the fever of his pride. Counsel he asked of me, and I was silent, because his words appeared inebriate. And then he said, Be not thy heart afraid. Henceforth I thee absolve, and thou instruct me how to raise Palestrina to the ground. Heaven have I power to lock and to unlock, as thou dost know. Therefore the keys are two, the which my predecessor held not dear. Then urged me on his weighty arguments, there where my silence was the worst advice, and said I, Father, since thou washest me of that sin into which I now must fall, the promise long with the fulfilment short will make thee triumph in thy lofty seat. Francis came afterwards when I was dead for me. But one of the black cherubim said to him, Take him not, do me no wrong. He must come down among my servitors, because he gave the fraudulent advice from which time forth I have been at his hair. For who repents not cannot be absolved, nor can one both repent and will at once, because of the contradiction which consents not. O miserable me! How I did shudder when he seized on me, saying, Peradventure thou didst not think that I was a logician. He bore me on to Minos, who entwined 8 times his tail about his stubborn back, and after he had bitten it in great rage said, Of the thievish fire a culprit this, wherefore here, where thou seest, am I lost, and bested thus in going I bemoan me. When it had thus completed its recital, the flame departed uttering lamentations, writhing and flapping its sharp-pointed horn. Onward we passed, both I and my conductor, up o'er the crag, up above another arch, which the moat covers, where is paid the fee by those who, sowing discord, win their burden. So this canto is continuing, again, the Counselors of Fraud, as I said a few cantos back. The deeper we get into hell, the more Dante lingers on a particular bulge or sin. So last time we had Ulysses, who counseled the Greeks to construct and execute Operation Trojan Horse, and then counsel his men on the way back home to, instead of going home, to go, cruising about, joyriding, gaining experience. Now we have a Ghibellin, Guido da Montefeltro of Romano, just otherwise known as Guido. And so Guido was a soldier, become Franciscan monk, re-become military by way of becoming a military advisor. Pope Boniface wanted to launch war on fellow Christians. He wanted to destroy the city of Palestrina. And so he wanted to get Guido's help as a military advisor. And at first, Guido declined. He was reluctant. He thought it horrible that instead of declaring war on Jews or on Muslims or any of the other enemies of the church at this time, that there was a bloodlust, a pride. The Pope wanted to conquer the Palestinians. And so the way he got Guido, and this is important to understand, Guido did not want to do this because it is a sin. It's not, it's killing fellow Christians without there being heresy or error. It's killing fellow Christians. It's a sin. It's not defending the church. It's a sin. There is no way around it. To engage in this attack of the city of Palestrina, there is no moral justification. It's a sin. Pope Boniface, sins of pride. And so he pays off Guido by promising him absolution in advance. If Guido sins by military council, then Pope Boniface will absolve him, meaning remitting the pains of hell. And so this is a tricky thing, especially for Protestant listeners. Even by Catholic theology, that's not possible. And the devil comes in to show that. So the devil is a foil here. He is a device to illustrate that. Guido goes down to hell, and St. Francis comes to rescue him. And that in and of itself is a beautiful notion. I'll get back to that in a second. But St. Francis comes to rescue him. Why? Because he was a Franciscan monk. And so all brothers or sisters of a particular order have the protection of their patron, in this case, St. Francis. And so even as St. Francis comes into hell to rescue Guido and bring him to heaven, the devil steps in with with master logic, and that's a very important thing to remember. Is that the devil, and this is what I tell my students all the time with my logic class. Remember that logic can be used for good or evil. It is a device like anything else. It simply makes sure that a conclusion logically follows from its premises. And the devil gets St. Francis here. He proves it to him that one cannot commit a sin and be contrite at the same time. One cannot repent. One can only be absolved if one repents. In other words, one can only be saved from the fires of hell if they repent. If he is actively committing sin by advising the Pope, he is sinning while seeking absolution. The two contradict each other. So, by logic, the devil is able to beat St. Francis here, and St. Francis has to acknowledge that, because God is the father of logic. Christ is the Logos, and so St. Francis goes away empty-handed back up to heaven. And so that reminds us, even within Catholic theology, that yes, we do have absolutions and we do have penances, but they are all conditional. They are all contingent upon a contrite heart. Not a perfect heart, but a heart that is turned away from the sin that it is committed, which Guido did not do. The last note is just the beauty of St. Francis coming down. It speaks to any devout Catholic's heart to see in reality that you're part of a religious order in life. And yes, it's named after the Saint Franciscans, or Dominicans, Saint Dominic, or Thomistic scholars, Saint Thomas Aquinas. But then to see that actually manifest itself in the afterlife, that a Franciscan didn't come after Guido, Saint Francis himself came after Guido. So this is also an especial canto for Catholics to remind them to constantly be praying to their patron saint, because they really are listening and will come down into hell for you. And if they can do so, succeed in beating the devil.